It was a moving conversation, and it was quite long too. Welcome to Arm Wrestling with COVID-19 in London. This is number 8. I had a conversation today with a friend of mine in Edinburgh, in Scotland. Before he became a friend, he was also a colleague, and we worked together over many years, me from London and him from Edinburgh, on a number of lobbying issues. And then we stayed in touch, we remained friends. And as I was talking to this person, I felt very clearly during our whole conversation the concerns he had with the new coronavirus. Hints that were made during the exchanges we had about, I hope I don't need to go to hospital, I hope I wouldn't catch this dreaded virus, I hope that I will not have to suffer like some of the other people I've heard are suffering and who unfortunately some of them have died too. Now, this is a man who suffers from Parkinson's disease, so it's not strictly speaking an underlying cause as I understand it, but it still debilitates the body and could at some stage also cause complications. And he is in his late 60s, early 70s. So the conversation was almost like, let's catch up, let's talk about what's happening, but also let me try and encourage him that things will be okay. Now, as I came off the blower, I sort of sat down, thought about this for a little bit, and I had hardly had time to do that when I again looked outside the window and started clapping. Why? Because today, Thursday night, 8 p.m., was the day again for the second week running when we clapped. All the UK, in all its 4 nations, clapped for our carers. And those carers are everybody working at the NHS, but also it includes people who drive buses, people who deliver our letters, people who drive the trains, people who go and empty the garbage bins, the pharmacists who dispense our prescriptions, everybody who is trying to do his or her best in order to help under very, very difficult circumstances. And yet, as I clapped, like many other people did, I'm sure, I also couldn't help but think that we're clapping because we're in solidarity with our carers, and so we should be. But we should also not forget that we are where we are today in what the editorials and the headlines in our papers said today: chaos, shambles, fiasco. Why? Because we have had a very dyslexic uh, set of policies by our political leaders. One day we were doing one thing, another day we are doing something else. We seem to be shifting, we seem to be basically defining policy as we go along. So, is it any wonder that any television channel you open for the news, any radio station, any newspaper, any online review, any social media, and they're talking about what? They're talking about the lack of oxygen and of ventilators in hospital. They're talking about the lack of PPE, of the equipment that nurses, medics, GPs, everybody has to wear in order to shield themselves from this virus, to shield themselves so they could also help us. We're talking about the labs. There are labs there that are idle, whether it's Oxford University or this or that, which could be mobilized in order to test those reagents we need for testing. Oh, and yes, testing. Testing, testing, testing. I keep hearing that there are two kinds of testing. Testing for antigens, in other words, to prove that you have the virus, this dreaded COVID-19, or testing for antibodies, which shows that you have had it, probably with mild symptoms, and now you are over it, hopefully, and you have developed some immunity. But all this is not happening. Where are those ubiquitous tests? Where are all those beds that we need in the ICU, in emergency, in all those hospitals across our 4 nations? It really is a difficult time for everybody. So, do you actually blame my friend in Edinburgh? When I talked to him about the chloroquine that is now being used in the United States, in Italy even, and sometimes in India, I understand, we haven't yet addressed ourselves to the chloroquine, which is a cheap anti-malarial uh, medicine that has existed for donkey's years and which apparently helps at the onset of the symptoms, not halfway through the symptoms when you're almost unable to move. Those are the things that define the confidence that a nation should have in its political leadership. Now, I've been told, Harry, come on, tone down. Now is not the time to criticize anybody. Now is the time to fight the fight. And then the criticism, the examination will come later. I fully understand that. And I know, trust me, I know that our leaders are trying their best, sometimes even their damnedest best, to try and get ahead of this wave, this increasing ascending peak that we are working towards seemingly. But, to be honest with you, when I speak to somebody like my friend in Edinburgh in Scotland, when I think of myself on my own here in London, when I talk to all those people via social media, on WhatsApp, on Skype, on Zoom, via the phone, the ordinary phone, you know, the one that you dial, all of them are worried. All of them are afraid. Why? Because basically, in this country, certainly like the United States, with the flip-flopping that President Trump has done from one minute to another, the man changes narratives so easily and so glibly. What has happened is that, in my humble opinion, we have underestimated the danger. We have become underprotected these days, and this is why now we are slowly trying to catch up. So, I don't want to sound gloomy. I'm not impugning guilt. I'm not trying to come out with fire and brimstone. All I'm saying is we are human beings. And we are all in different ways afraid, no matter how much bravado we show, no matter how much we talk ourselves out of worrying. And of course, we look at the honesty and the integrity and the clarity of politicians and we ask ourselves, why did we underestimate this virus at the beginning of this wave in, say, January, early February even? And how long will we be underprotected? Whether the we are the frontline NHS staff, whether the we are the people driving the buses, or whether the we are ordinary millions upon millions of human beings, men, women, and children, living in their homes, trying, at least in most cases, to self isolate and self confine. So, let's hope that by clapping for our carers today, we instilled a sense of hope, a sense of enthusiasm, as much as a sense of gratitude for all those people, and in so doing, we boosted our own confidence and our own morale in that we will be able to overcome this dreaded virus, and that tomorrow might not be a better day, but the day will come when we will be looking at it from the other side of this whole spectrum. Wash your hands for 20 seconds. 2 happy birthdays. Try to self isolate as much as you can. Try to take all the measures that you think are logical, sensible, and let's hope that as we clap our way out of this pandemic, we will then sort of have learned some lessons and we will not just forget it until the next time. Bill Gates said it. I say it today. He has far more influence than I do, but we both are thinking on the same lines. Take care and all the best.